Hey guys, welcome back to Bridge 4, part 2 of a 100 plus part series. In this series, we're mapping Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time book series bit by bit as we recap what happens all along the way. Today's video is going to focus on chapters 5 through 9 of book 1, The Eye of the World. Go out and get that book, it's so much fun. Chapter 5, Winter Night. We pick back up with Rand and his father Tam, who had traveled back to their farm west of Emmons Field. Tam immediately acted strange, locking doors that they had never locked. Then he pulled out a sword and a scabbard that were marked with herons. Rand had never known that his father even had a sword. But good thing he did, because as Rand prepared dinner, boom, a Trolloc bust through the front door. Tam yelled for Rand to run, and he did, with shame. He saw his father escape the house and, once again, yell for Rand to run as he himself ran the other way. What a father. After a period of Rand hiding, Tam regrouped and he found Rand, and he wondered what brought the Trollocs to the Two Rivers in the first place. Why were they there? Tam was wounded, so Rand went back to the farm buildings to get their horse Bella and the cart, as well as some supplies, and while he was back inside their home, he was approached by a Trolloc who had waited, a Trolloc who had stayed there for Rand. And oddly, the Trolloc told Rand that a Myrddraal wanted to speak with him. But then the Trolloc attacked, snapping at Rand, trying to grab him, but Rand was quick enough to draw his sword, and the Trolloc died. Rand then discovered that their horse Bella, our girl Bella, she was gone, and the cart's wheels were broken anyway. So Rand would have to bring Tan into town himself so that the village wisdom, Nynaeve, she could heal him. So Rand used the heron-marked blade to quickly cut apart the cart for pieces that he would use to help drag Tam back to Emmons Field. He chopped apart the cart pretty quickly and he noticed that the blade didn't dull at all. It's a special sword. Chapter 6, The Westwood. Rand went back to his father in the woods, bandaged him up, made a makeshift litter, and then he began to drag Tam down Quarry Road towards Emmons Field. As he did so, Tam began to have fever dreams, and who doesn't love fever dreams, right? Tam spoke of mysterious battles of the past, and then Rand heard the Trollocs coming, so he dragged Tam into the woods and let them pass. 20 Trollocs and the mysterious Cloaked Rider from Chapter 1. The Cloaked Rider rode back and forth a couple times, but Rand was patient, and he waited it out. Meanwhile, Tam continued to have strange fever dreams, speaking about the Tree of Life and a sapling. It reminded Rand of the Green Man. Rand thought of Ogiers and Aielmen and other things, some of which Rand had always thought were just stories. And then Rand spoke about a baby that he found and named Rand, causing Rand to question who he was and whether Tam was really his father. He had to be, Rand tried to convince himself as he plodded along, but doubt echoed in his mind. Light, who am I? Chapter 7, Out of the Woods. As the title would suggest, Rand arrived at Emmons Field. What a son, good for him. The village had also been attacked the night prior. But what's strange is that the destruction seemed scattered at random through the village. 5 houses marched untouched in one row, while in another place, a lone survivor stood surrounded by desolation. Of course, it's the opposite of random. The attackers were there looking for someone specific, so they attacked specific targets, which we'll get to in a little bit. The village blacksmith, huge Maester Luhan, so he saw Rand and then he yelled for Egwene, since Egwene would probably know where the wisdom Nynaeve was. Unfortunately, when Nynaeve showed up, exhausted from having healed people, she told Rand that there was nothing she could do for his father, Tam. Egwene was heartbroken for Rand and for his father, but Nynaeve called her away since Egwene is sort of Nynaeve's unofficial apprentice. The peddler, Podon Fain, his cart was destroyed and Podon Fain himself had disappeared. But the gleeman, Tom, was still there, and he helped Rand bring Tam into the town inn, which someone had marked with a dragon's fang on its door. Basically, someone blamed the trouble on the mayor, or at least those that the mayor was housing at his inn, such as Moraine and Lan. Turns out, Moraine had fought the Trollocs the night before, and she fought with magic, with ball lightning. And Lan was part of that dance as well. According to Master Alvir, Lan had been a whirlwind with his sword in 10 places at once, or so it seemed. Their secret was no longer a secret. Moraine was an Aes Sedai, and Lan, her warder, which meant maybe Moraine could heal Tam with magic. But let's be careful. Tom warned Rand that Aes Sedai do what they do for reasons of their own, and they aren't always the reasons others think. Still, it was Rand's only shot to heal Tam, so he went to Moraine and Lan, who were on the other side of the bridges, disposing of the dead Trollocs. Turns out, 7 bands of Trollocs had come to Emond's Field. That's a lot of Trollocs, which implies that the Trollocs had come for something very important to them. Moraine asks Rand about his dreams and says that if he has any nightmares, he should tell her about them. Keep that on your radar. Moraine, Lan, and Rand then head back to the inn so that Moraine could take a look at Tam, but Moraine is walking slow. She was exhausted. So the chapter ends with a hint that the magic in this story comes at a cost. And think about who else was tired in this chapter. Chapter 8, A Place of Safety. Moraine Sedai healed Tam as best as she could, then let him rest. And as he rested, Moraine and Lan spoke with Rand. Lan noticed the heron-marked blade, and he pointed out that there are places where the heron is a symbol of a master swordsman. How it was strange for a sheep herder such as Tamlin Althor to have bought it. After they chatted, Rand got excited to see Tam, as if he had been fully healed, but Moraine cautiously pointed out that Trolloc weapons were made at forges in the valley called Thuncan Dar, on the very slopes of Shel Ghul itself. That's over here. Some of those weapons that the Trollocs used took a taint from that place, a strain of evil in the metal. Those tainted blades make wounds that do not heal unaided. Those tainted blades cause deadly fevers and strange sicknesses that medicines cannot touch. So it turns out, Moraine had soothed Tam's pain, but the mark, the taint, was still in him. Left alone, it would grow again and consume him. Moraine also told Rand about her Ungriel, a device that assists her with magic, and it's worth noting, Aes Sedai no longer know how to make any more Ungriels. Lan then told Rand about Myrddraal, also referred to as Fades and Halfmen. Myrddraal have powers from the Dark One, and ever since the Forsaken were bound, Myrddraal have been the brain that tells the Trolloc Fist where to strike. They're like the quarterbacks. The night before, Moraine and Lan had both tried to kill one of the Myrddraal, but they were unable to do so. So clearly, Myrddraal are formidable foes. And it's worth remembering that back at Rand's home, the Trolloc that he had killed had told him that a Myrddraal had wanted to speak with Rand. Very strange. So Moraine comes back, and she rejoined Rand and Lan's conversation, and she notified Rand that with the use of the Ungrial, the taint inside Tam was now gone. Yay! All he would need was rest. But there would be no rest for Rand would need to leave with them. And soon. The Trollocs had clearly come with a purpose, attacking specific targets such as Rand's farm, the Ibarra farm, the forge and the blacksmith's house. So, Rand's house, Mat's house, Perrin's house, and Perrin's mentor, the blacksmith's home and forge. It would seem that the Trollocs had come to kill or capture young men of a certain age, Rand's age. Not someone 10 months older or younger, but someone right about his age. And it just so happens that Rand, Mat, and Perrin had all been born within 3 weeks of one another. Moraine claimed that within one or all 3 of them, there was something that the Dark One must fear. For Lan would expect to fight Trollocs along the Great Blight up here, but not in the 2 rivers down here, nearly 600 leagues to the south. Trollocs had not been seen in the 2 rivers for 2,000 years. Why they wanted the boys, neither Moraine nor Lan knew. And how the Trollocs got so far inland without any alarms being raised by people, that's a mystery. For now. But regardless, everyone at Emond's Field was in danger so long as Rand, Mat, and Perrin stayed there. So Moraine suggested that they leave that very night and begin their journey to Tarvalin, to the White Tower and the Aes Sedai. But since they would be leaving that night, it was time for Rand to get some rest. Chapter 9, Tellings of the Wheel. This chapter opened up in a completely different world of sorts. Rand was being chased by Trollocs. There are canyons, fires, thunder and lightning, jagged black mountains, and one mountain that thrust upward, taller than he had ever seen in the Mountains of Mist. And that mountain was the source of his desolation. He had never seen it before, but he knew it. Ran was pulled towards the mountain by a force of sorts, at which point he heard a voice saying, "Serve me, serve me." Then a hand reached toward Ran, so Ran flung himself from the ledge and landed somewhere else. In winter-brown grass, leafless trees, and in the distance another mountain, oddly out of place with no other mountain in sight. A city glowing white, towers and high bridges with swift water running below them, and the sense of safety, sanctuary. Suddenly, Ran was chased once again, so Rand ran. He ran further and further from the white walls of that glowing city, but he tripped and fell and landed upon paving stones approaching a bridge. And across that bridge he knew was safety. People there spoke a language that Rand did not understand. The city was so beautiful. The harmony of music, the smell of sweet perfumes, as if every good smell in the world were gathered there. And the White Tower, where safety lay and the knowledge he sought. But there was no rush to get to the White Tower, not while in such a magnificent city. So Rand turned, but the tower lay ahead of him once again. No matter which alley or street he chose, the alabaster tower was there ahead of him. He was afraid to look over his shoulder, afraid it would be there too. People then gestured him towards the tower, for he was their savior. They sung and danced, all for him. And he danced along with them. It was his destiny, a voice whispered in his head. He mounted the stairs to the White Tower without hesitation. This was where he belonged. But upon entering the tower, he was greeted by a Murdral who said, "We have been waiting for you." Then Ran woke up, still in the room with his father Tam, who had confirmed that he would recover with rest. Ran told Tam that he was going to have to leave the Two Rivers, and surprisingly, Tam did not protest. In fact, he said he may follow and catch up with Ran after he was fully rested. But Tam gave Ran a warning about Aes Sedai, similar to that which Tom had given Rand earlier. Tam said that the truth in Aes Sedai tells you is not always the truth you think it is. And Aes Sedai do things for their own reasons, and they are not always the reasons you think. So Rand should be careful around Moraine, and also around Lan, as Lan is Moraine's warder. If you told Lan something, you should assume that Moraine would hear about it too. Speaking of Lan, Lan came in and he urged Rand to hurry up as there was trouble brewing. Before Rand left, Tam told Rand to hang on to that heron-marked blade. Pretty interesting. Our boy Matt then joined them, and together they all went outside the inn, where they saw villagers harassing Moraine. Moraine, the woman who had defended the town and fought off the Trollocs and Murdral. The woman who had healed many of those same villagers that were yelling at her to leave the town. But it's easy to see where they're coming from. And Aes Sedai showed up, and the next day the Trollocs showed up, so they blamed her for the attacks. Foolish and wrong, but understandable. But Moraine Sedai is an alpha cat, and she had something to say. Moraine showed the villagers her power, spinning her staff, flames extending from the tips like spear points. Moraine condemned the town for having forgotten who they were, forgetting what they were. She went on to tell the villagers how this region was once called Manetherin. She told them of legends of that time, of the bravery, beauty, wisdom, and sacrifices that the people of Manetherin had made during a tragic war versus a Trolloc army. When she was done, her speech had definitely impacted the villagers, and some even apologized to her. But regardless, it was time for Moraine, Lan, Matt, Perrin, and Rand to leave Emonsfield and begin their journey to the Aes Sedai of the White Tower in Tar Valon. This was the real beginning, Rand realized, leaving the inn and following the warder into the night. He had no choice but to go, but he would come back to Emonsfield, however far or long this journey was. Oh, the story's getting real. Alright, next week a bonus video, and they'll actually be traveling in this mapping series in part 3. Catch you on the flip side.